Minecraft's new update adds 7 new ways to play Superflat, and just like the original, these are technically meant for creative, but Jeb has confirmed that you can play these in survival for a fun challenge. And so as someone who has done precisely that, surviving my own bit of Superflat, I want to tell you exactly how good these new variants are for survival, and I'm going to rank them from the very best to the very worst, and if one of these strikes you as particularly bad, don't worry, it is. Believe me, it gets even worse than that, and I want to describe how in this video, ranking all of these Superflat presets. And so with that said, let's start with the important first point, which is methodology, because I'm going to assume that these worlds are not loaded up on hardcore. This is a setting you can enable, but it will make the bonus chest unenableable, which is just such a brutal way to play Superflat, let me tell you from first-hand experience. I'll also assume for these rankings that your goal is to experience as much of Minecraft as possible, and so we're going to be ranking it on 3 main things. The first is access to the basics, because survivability is important. If you don't have wood or food, you're not going to make it very far, but like with every challenge, the most important value generation point is going to be access to villagers. If you can't have villagers, then you can't have these guys who can summon campfires from the middle of nowhere, or bricks, or even better, enchanted diamond tools. There are no diamonds in any of these world types, let alone enchantment tables, but somehow you can get an infinite supply from your guy over here, and I guess we choose not to ask questions about that, but you can also use the emeralds that you get from these villagers to go to the world's most murdered man, because he happens to use it as his currency as well, meaning that you can get so much value just from 2 villagers, which is why it is one of the most important things. However, there are going to be additional points for how many extra blocks are found in a given world type, because for example, only the water world has gravel access, which means that if you trade with the wandering trader for sand, it's the only world type where you can make concrete powder. These are the things we'll be considering as we go through our rankings, but let's start with the very easiest world type to survive. It's not the classic flat, but it might as well be, at least from someone looking at the world from a distance, because yes, it has grass and dirt and bedrock just like a normal world, but what makes it the overworld version is the fact that this actually has layers of stone in between it, which is incredible for 2 reasons. The first is probably very obvious, which is if you have access to wood in your bonus chest, as most people do, you'll be able to immediately mine and get cobblestone tools. That's a game changer. These are very, very useful for the early game, but also it's great because it means that you're much closer to the surface. All of these stone blocks mean that your coordinates are not -64 like a regular Superflat, but are Y0, and aren't these just the most satisfying coordinates? Okay, for average players though, it's worth mentioning you can still get access to villagers. You have to go the usual route of using your saplings to get apples, using the apples with gold that you get from pigs that have been struck by lightning to turn into zombie piglins, and then you can use golden apples and splash potions of weakness from a witch to magically make yourself villagers. Every time I explain that, it sounds like a crazy conspiracy rabbit hole, but it is a real thing that you can do, and you can get villagers just as easy on this world, but then you'll also have access to cobblestone, and you'll have easier ways to get away from slimes. But cobblestone is not just a way to make cobblestone pickaxes, it's also a way that you can make pistons once you have iron, or in the earlier game, you can make dispensers if you have witch's redstone, and basically lots of different options open up if you play the overworld flat type, and I think that that's what makes it the best go-to out of all of the default worlds. I think there is an argument between this and the second best one though, because as great as it is to have a world where we've got literally 60 plus layers of stone, there is a world type that can do this better, and let me show you what it is. This next world type will look suspiciously similar to the last one. I mean, it's grass, dirt, and then cobblestone instead of stone, but it's all the same otherwise, right? But the reason it's called the Bottomless Pit is because if you choose to start digging down, you'll find cobblestone, and then below the cobblestone, you might have missed that there's actually no bedrock, meaning that yes, there is a void. I managed to kill myself in the first 20 seconds of opening this world, and that is something which is a skill, but also potentially a huge upside. First things first though, how good is this world for survival? Well, you can still access cobblestone, and so you can make a stone pickaxe, making getting resources for surviving a little bit easier. Stone axes, stone pickaxes, and stone swords will all make your survival much better than our default flat, and then also this means that you can access villagers in the exact same ease as default Superflat, or this one right here. However, the reason that this is the number 2 in terms of, which ones I'd recommend, is because even though there are all sorts of benefits of being able to open up holes into the void, at least for non-hardcore players, but I think it's really cool being able to have dirt at the bottom of a world, or even slabs, or you can choose what you want to have, or you can have an endless hole into the void to stare into and remind yourself what you're doing here. But even though I think this is a great feature, it does have to be mentioned that there is a slight downside in that ice is slightly harder to access. You're closer to Y-64, which is further away from where water freezes into ice, but more crucially, you also will find yourself further away from getting away from slime spawning, and just in case you happen to get Silk Touch later, possible via librarians or toolsmiths, you actually won't be able to use Silk Touch on the stone to get stone because it's cobblestone instead. Stone and cobblestone are 99% the same, but with Silk Touch, you'll be able to lose one block and therefore all of the variants that come with it, and I would say that makes the Bottomless Pit the more quirky and stranger way to play Superflat, but not technically the best way to play Superflat. Indeed, it's just second. So what's going to be third then? You might think that at this point we just say Classic Flat because it's the same as these minus stone, but actually, here's a weird opinion. This is the Tunneler's Dream preset, and apparently the way this came about was someone saying to themselves, you know what, I like the overworld preset, but what instead of having 60 stone, we had over 200, and that has resulted in this world right here. Notably, it doesn't say anywhere or suggest anywhere, but the biome has also changed to the windswept hills, which means that you'll actually find cold pigs, sheep, pigs, and chickens out here, which is really, really interesting. These all have the exact same drops, and so for survivability, things are the same, except slightly better, because we're at Y173, which means no slimes anywhere. Slimes don't spawn until Y40 or below, which means we actually have the perfect world, except the only trade-off is instead of getting horses and donkeys, which we could one day saddle with fishing, instead we get llamas, which just kind of exist. So you get less danger in your early game, but less overall variety in your mobs. No horses and donkeys, and just llamas is definitely a downgrade, and there's also a mid-game downgrade in the fact that when it rains, or indeed when it thunders, you have this interesting effect of snow instead of finding rain. This means that you can't fill a cauldron, for example, because there's no rain until you go all the way down here, and also it means that if you have water on the surface, because you want to fish, that's also going to freeze. That means that you need to tunnel underground if you want to do any fishing, to get a saddle, which you won't need, and it also means that you have to keep your water reservoirs really, really deep down. In theory, there's more creativity unlocked by having the stone down there, but in reality, it means that you are going to have a much deeper world than you probably need, and also, if you were playing this world type on Java, the fact that it snows instead of rains is meant to prevent lightning from happening. However, my tests on Bedrock indicate that actually, lightning can strike just fine here, and so you would have, this would be one of the worst world types on the Java version, but on Bedrock it's pretty chill, slightly worse than the Bottomless Pit and the overworld, unless you really love llamas, or you really, really want to have no slimes anywhere, which are two fair opinions, I think. Look at that! It thunders. It literally just struck this creeper right here. And so yeah, here is a fun example of Minecraft parity, which you might not have realized. It can lightning even when it's not snowing, at least on Bedrock. By the way, super intense. Speaking of super intense, let's go into the fourth Superflat type. This is Classic Flat, and I'm choosing to show it off by using my long-term Classic Flat world that I'm actually playing in hardcore right now. There's a lot of fun reasons that relate to that, but it's one layer of grass, 2 layers of dirt, and bedrock. This means really easy mob proofing. This is a slime chunk that I prevented slimes from spawning on because slimes don't spawn on bedrock, and it also means that crucially your access to villagers and your access to early game resources is what we are measuring as our baseline from, which means the reason this is 4th place is not because it's great, but because it's our baseline and everything else is worse. And so you better believe that as we come into number 5, I'm not going to be selling you on any benefits anymore, but instead, the Snowy Kingdom is a world that I want to love. I mean, it's basically the overworld biome preset, except with snow layers and snow blocks on top, which in theory could be great. You could use a shovel on these and get yourself some brand new blocks, which could allow for some very cool builds, except in reality, it's worse in every way than the overworld type, and let me tell you how. And keep in mind that I was already going to put this in 5th when I thought that lightning wouldn't work when it was snowing, but you can in fact find lightning here, so your access to villagers is technically the same, but in reality, it's much harder. First of all, because if you want to do any farming or planting of any saplings, you need to break the snow to get down there first. If this isn't bad enough, consider that we're actually in a snowy plains biome. This means that instead of having access to cold chickens, cold pigs, and cold cows, like in the Tunneler's Dream, we have access to rabbits as our only source of food. Or maybe polar bears you could count as one too, but that means that instead of just having slimes, which is already rough enough, this world has slimes and then randomly spawning polar bears, which might kill you. If you want to torture yourself, choose to play Minecraft this way. However, survivability is so far down that even if technically speaking, access to villages is the same, this is just worse. Also, additionally, if you wanted access to snow, you would play Tunneler's Dream, and so if Tunneler's Dream is one of the worst of the good Superflats, this is Tunneler's Dream, but even worse in every single way. No one should play this, no one wants to play this, and even for creative, I hate these random snow layers. It's like one of the worst things that's happened to Minecraft generation is adding random stuff to the surface. Like, you want flat places to build on. This is fundamentally not a super flat world, right? It is the opposite of super flat. It's super layered, which I do not like. But there's 3 things I like even less than this, and you might be thinking at this point, like, Toycat, are you really being this harsh on the deserts? And don't worry, no, next is actually going to be Waterworld. And I want you to see this, by the way, not just the way the layers look, this is the most interesting and complicated preset, but also the fact that I'm turning on a bonus chest right now. I want you to see me creating the world, because I know there's going to be an instinct that, Toycat, you messed up a setting there, but look at this. As you can see, there is no bonus chest anywhere to be found. And so now you might be saying, okay, there is no access to wood, and your only option for survival is swimming up to the surface where there are no blocks. How can this possibly be the 6th best, Toycat? And I'm gonna have to put my insane conspiracy hat on to describe to you the sequence of events that you can use to make a real survival out of this, because it is possible. If you're not playing hardcore, where on hardcore you just have to sit on the surface, it's a key assumption of this entire video that you're not playing hardcore. What you can instead do is immediately start breaking the gravel down below you. If you're playing on easy or high difficulty, you'll die a few times before you get down to the dirt, but using the dirt, you can make a safe place for you not to die using the using water physics, which look, I've done right here. I'm technically surviving, and now I can use this air bubble that I've just created to mine more dirt. If I mine this dirt enough times, and you better believe I'm committed to doing that, I'll be able to make a big platform that takes me all the way up to the surface, and then I'll be able to build a surface on top of the water. Well, this isn't that useful by itself. You still have to, mobs aren't going to spawn up there. It's a ocean biome after all, but what you will find is cod and salmon in the ocean, and you'll also find that the Wandering Trader can spawn up there. I've tested this, it took a very long time, but he does naturally spawn on the surface, and so that Wandering Trader, in theory, so during the night, he'll try to cower from the drowns by drinking an invisibility potion, and during the day, he will drink a milk bucket. If you kill him perfectly while he's drinking his milk bucket, he's got a small chance of dropping it, which you can then trade with future Wandering Traders. If you do, you'll be able to get some emeralds, which will get you some logs. You can use those logs to go back down below the surface, where you'll find not just stone, but deep slate as well. This deep slate, stone, can be used to upgrade your tools if you want to, sure. It can be used to make some cobblestone on the surface and play around with some builds, but also you can make yourself a furnace. If you have wood, which you have to make the wooden pickaxe. So if you make yourself a furnace, now you've got access to the craziest possibility, because this world has no pigs, and so in theory, you have no access to gold. You have no way to make a golden apple, and no way to cure a zombie villager, right? Except, and again, this is, I'll concede, things get a little bit crazy as we say this, but in theory, what you could do is you could wait for mobs to spawn with gold armor on, and you could use that gold armor, smelt it down into gold nuggets, turn those gold nuggets into golden ingots, and once you got enough of those, combine it with an oak tree, with an apple from an oak tree, which you can get from the Wandering Trader after killing more of his compatriots and getting milk buckets from them. And if you happen to do all of that, you'd be able to get a witch to cure a zombie villager using your golden apple, and then you would be able to, technically speaking, survive on this world fully. That is insane and long-winded, but the reason that this is 6th place is because it is at least possible. And I know that that was a lot of steps and a lot of craziness, but if we go into the 7th best type, you'll see that there's just no choice for it. This is the Desert Superflat, and let me start with the good things I can say. There are 4 different types of blocks that make up the recipe here. You can't say that for all of them. And also let me start by saying that, oh, we're at 0, 0, 0, the perfect coordinates. And honestly, this world seems fairly decent on the surface. It's just a regular world but a desert, which means no rain. However, that sadly also means no access to thunder, which is a pretty big deal. But I realized while recording the last segment and realizing that you could technically use a furnace and you could technically smelt up gold, you don't need lightning if you can find stone, and below all of the sandstone, for some reason, the desert has some regular stone. I can only think it's there for survivability reasons, like literally, why else would they put it there? And so if you get a pickaxe, you can mine that stone and do some great things with it. However, the reason that this world is not good at all for survivability is because we have a bonus chest, it is existing, but what happens when we try to use it? Oh, we can't plant birch saplings on dirt. We'll have to go find some dirt in the... Oh, there's no dirt in the world. With no dirt, there is no access to crops. That means no way to trade with the Wandering Trader to get some hay bales. No access to crops at all until... there's no access to crops. There's no access to the ability to plant down trees. And so you can never get renewable wood in these worlds. Unless... hypothetically, so again, your survivability sucks. You just have rabbits and slimes and camels if you're lucky. So you have to survive on raw rabbits, which by the way is easier said than done. So you literally just have rabbits as a food source. You have no wood besides what spawns in your bonus chest. And life is very, very miserable. I mean, just let me kill you. Let me have an easy win here, Mr. Rabbit. Life is very miserable for a very long time because the only way you can get yourself out of this mess and into the villager trading game, which, to recap, what you need to do is you need a splash potion of weakness to hit a villager, to a zombie villager, and then you need a golden apple. So you could make a golden apple in theory, except you would need to get a oak tree to grow, which you can't have it grow because there's no dirt. But the Wandering Trader sells rooted dirt, which means to make any progress in this world whatsoever, you don't just have to kill the Wandering Trader while he's drinking a milk bucket one time, you have to do it 3 or 4 times successfully, which will probably take you 40, 50 Minecraft days if you have average luck, and then you need to hope that the Wandering Trader has just the right trade with you, something that can be turned into dirt, and then you need to turn that block into dirt, and then you can start farming your birch or your oak or whatever you find, in this case, not a very useful bonus chest. And then once you've done that, you could start growing carrots and you could start doing other things. But this world is just miserable because all you have, it's not even that unique. It's a desert, so you have camels, slimes, and rabbits. And honestly, I think I would rather be underwater and dealing with the insanity of that than dealing with an endless desert with sand everywhere. But it does get worse than this. Having a bunch of sand on the surface is the only thing that makes this technically better, because even though this is my least favorite, or it would be my least favorite survival Superflat preset, actually it gets worse. Because there is another called Redstone Ready, and do you know what Redstone Ready is? This is the exact same world as before, except there's no sand on the surface, and there's about double as much sandstone below it. So early game survivability is technically slightly higher. There's no slimes trying to kill you. There's just the rabbits, which you'll have to punch. And then there's, of course, the slimes, the camels, which will still spawn here. So it's a slightly better early game experience until you realize that sand can be broken with a fist, while sandstone can only be broken using a pickaxe. Or, again, very slowly with your fist, but you won't get the block back. Meaning the only blocks you'll have access to are the ones that spawn naturally in this chest, very, very few by the way, and then the ones that you can break with your pickaxe. Even if you did have access to renewable wood, which you don't by the way, the only way to get more cobblestone is to get all the way down to those 3 stone layers at the very bottom of the world, and then to mine it using a stone pickaxe. Your stone pickaxe won't last that long, even if you happen to get one from your bonus chest, and so this world is absolute pain, because it's the same as before, but instead of being able to use sand and at least build things for those first 50 or 60 days, you would spend 50 or 60 Minecraft days, which you'd have to wait to have any chance of getting a village or anything done that isn't staring at the camera or killing rabbits, because that's your only task. You survive by killing rabbits so that you get enough hunger that you can use it to kill more rabbits. When nighttime comes, you sit in a hole in the ground because you're not going to find a bed. This would be the most miserable way to play Superflat, and unlike the water world, which is miserable but at least, challenging and has a theoretical end, This is miserable in the way where just, oh, didn't get a rabbit, I might starve tonight. Oh, guess what? It's 3 days in, I have no beds. I'm going to be sitting through literally dozens of days of phantoms. No one in their right mind is playing this. The water world is already ridiculous enough. Honestly, all of the worlds below Classic Flat are ridiculous and no one probably should play them, but this is ridiculous to the point where the only thing to say is, why does it even exist? Why did they put those stone layers down at the bottom? It's not even that good for redstone if we're being perfectly honest with ourselves. And I would say if we're only going to have 8 Superflat presets, this one could be a lot better. Or maybe it's deliberately here as the biggest challenge. You can be the judge of that one. But to conclude at this point, I think it's worth saying that playing Superflat Survival is not for the faint-hearted. I'm sure you picked that up somewhere in this video, but just in case you didn't, spending 50 to 100 days in the very early game of Minecraft is something that you might struggle with, but if you did before, you might enjoy that there are now 3 types of it that are better than the classic flat we had before. Indeed, I think that most of the other world types just aren't going to be playable until structure generation turns on, at which point the unique biomes might be more interesting. Redstone Ready and the Snowy preset just aren't very great in my opinion. Maybe that will change in the future, but as for changes in the future, we do expect to see them, but we are seeing them slower than we expect. I mean, obviously the real dream here is Superflat like exists on console, or maybe even better, because I created Ultraflat a few years ago, and you might know that the whole vision was that I enjoyed playing Superflat Survival so much, and I wanted to make the ultimate version of it, so it has multiple biomes on the same world, something no Minecraft version supports. It has the option to turn structures on or off, or quick start on or off, and it also has the ability to build up to 1,000 blocks in the air, because you can take advantage of the lack of terrain to have far greater lack of limits on your creativity, but sadly none of these have been taken up by Mojang themselves. We now have more presets, but we're still a long way from having the perfect Superflat experience. One day I dream, I hope, of the day that Ultraflat is pointless because Minecraft itself has them, but in the meantime I look forward to seeing all of these changes, and I look forward to maybe one day playing around with some of these presets, or maybe even the new one coming in the next update, because the Void is coming, and I don't know if that's something to be excited about. But I do know that I'm excited that after literally 7 years of petitioning, we finally have movement on the Superflat front, and hopefully the parity push that Minecraft is doing will lead to even more of this in the future. With that said though, out of all of these, my favourite and my recommendation that I'd like to double down on one more time, because I'm enjoying Superflat a lot, and if you want to enjoy it too, my recommendation for the best world is either Overworld, if you want to have the best overall experience, or I would say if you're going for a bit of a wildcard one, the Tunneler's Dream could be special, or if you want to do literally the most insane but perhaps rewarding thing ever, maybe Waterworld is for you. In either case though, I hope you enjoyed this video, I hope you found it to be useful, and if you did, consider checking out my Superflat Survival live streams, where I'm currently playing the hardcore version, which means no access to a bonus chest. It means that I still, I actually only got access to wood, and I'm just getting access to, things past that right now, probably as this video goes up. So come check it out if you want to see me surviving on a perfectly flat world like this one. Look at it. It's intense and crazy, isn't it? But thank you for watching. I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Oh, this is actually the overworld preset. I didn't even remember that that's how this was. But look, you can tell it's the best Superflat preset because the whole world is made from it. Anyway, thank you, and I'll see you next time. Bye.